Is Carolina about to land a former five-star running back from Alabama? We talk about all that and more. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. Hope you are having a fantastic start to your Tuesday. We've got a quick episode with a lot of good stuff to get to, as well as an exclusive interview with our buddy Chris Gordy with Kyle Kennard from last week during the award circuits. Before we do, I want to say thank you to everyone for making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, guys, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Listen, keep the season going. It's about to be bowl season. Still got a ton of NFL stuff as well, but you can finish the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win the first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, so here's the layout of today's show. We're going to talk about transfer portal updates. We'll have a very brief basketball preview in the second segment, and then we'll close out with an interview with Kyle Kennard. The latest in the portal, not a ton of craziness happening right now. Carolina sitting with two guys they've gotten from the portal so far. I think that's fine. This has not really been a focal point from Shane Beamer consistently year in, year out, where you're going to see him take upwards of 15, 20 guys. This is his fifth year, fifth offseason with the portal. 2021, you had 12 guys come in. 2022, you had 9. 2023, you had 11. And 2024, you had a lot more that year. You had 22. But it's also a year where you ended up getting, a ton of production. You had basically seven starters on both sides of the ball from that class alone. So the names and people that you're hearing rumors about currently, first off, there's a ton of players that are going to be set to visit South Carolina. I feel like the list is still pretty short. The more you talk about it, it seems like Carolina is way more focused on finishing out the season strong in the bowl game. 2, you don't really get the feeling that they feel they have a ton of needs where they're going to go make a super risky, financial decision, financial move, and throw a ton of money at, players that might not pan out or players that might not be a good fit. And the second part is the most important part. And we talked about this on a couple of shows last week, which is there really have been few coaches, not just in the SEC, but around the country, that have been this good and this consistent at hitting on the players they get from the portal. Beamer has killed it. And without getting too much into it, because you hope everyone that leaves Carolina and goes somewhere else, they obviously find success and more playing time or whatever. You want it to be a win-win for both parties. Not really a ton of guys that have left and been a massive, massive impact elsewhere. Talk about Stone Blanton, who was second in the SEC or second at Mississippi State in tackles this year with 95. Obviously, Jordan Bird's kid from Hammond that ended up going to Oregon. He's been obviously really, really good as well. But those are things that out of the total number of players that have left versus the players that have made some huge impact somewhere else, you're not looking at a guy that, I'm trying to think of an example here, like for lack of a better example, Joe Burrow, who leaves Ohio State and ends up becoming one of the best quarterbacks in SEC or college football history at LSU. There's nothing remotely close to that. Even the Juice Wells thing, you got Juice Wells from JMU and got the most production out of him, and then he left and took a massive step back. So you have one in the portal at pretty much every angle from Shane Beamer. Now you want to start getting, a little bit more quality depth, and some of the O linemen that you got from last year, you were able to get 2 offensive linemen that started for last year's team from the portal. you would feel a little bit more comfortable with the upside, and maybe they had a ton of experience coming in, but you would feel better if it wasn't a kid necessarily from SC State or Group of Five school or anything like that, and maybe somebody from another Power Four program, another SEC program, things like that. Those are all the next iterations in what Beamer is building with this program. Now, what they currently have in place, like I said, you have 2 commits, and Jaylen Brown, 4-star edge from Mizzou, kind of a surprise to me that he left Mizzou. And then you get Nick Sharp, the kid from Wake Forest, 6'2", 335. At the very least, you have a physically ready body to give you added depth and compete in the interior offensive line. Now, remember, we talked about you lose like 119 combined starts or combined games over the course of their careers from guard, center to guard. Guard to guard, you lose a ton of snaps, a ton of starts, and a ton of experience. 93.5 or 93.1% of the total snaps at those 3 positions combined this season are gone, right? Like they're gone. So that's a huge get, and like literally and figuratively. I love the Jaden Brown get as well because, for one, you're coming off a year where you went out and got Kyle Kennard, and you look at the production he was able to have from Georgia Tech then to South Carolina. I'm not saying that Jaylen Brown is going to be Kyle Kennard. 6'5", 265, kid that's already produced in the SEC. I love that. And again, whoever lines up opposite of Dylan Stewart is already going to have an advantage because of the extra bodies and extra attention they're going to have to give to Stewart. And let's not forget what they have still coming back up the middle as well. So I think that's a great get. The ones that are being talked about most now, you got a defensive lineman who's a former 5-star out of Texas A&M. He's a 5-star out of high school, number 11 overall player in the country. He's currently, I think, a 3-star in the portal, which is fine. The main one is Justice Haynes. Justice Haynes was a 5-star running back out of Roswell, Georgia. I think he went to Blessed Trinity or something like that. But he's from a big school, got great bloodlines. His dad was a fullback at Georgia in the early 2000s. 5-star running back. Everybody in the country wanted him. Went to Bama over Georgia, and really was underutilized, completely underutilized at Alabama. Now, as of today, and we're recording this Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, the 4 teams that are being talked about most with Justice Haynes: South Carolina, Ole Miss, Ohio State, and Michigan. I understand the Michigan and Ohio State talk, especially because of what we've already seen from Quinshon Judkins going up there. And we also know the amount of money that they are going to be willing to throw players like this. I love the fit at South Carolina. Now, I don't know if South Carolina necessarily feels like they need him. I think the more you hear the coaches talk, especially with bowl prep and practices, Jordan Howell is a kid that has been really, really just rave reviews every time the coaches get a chance to talk about him. I know you guys were very high on him in the comments last week when we talked about needs at running back. You're going to have to figure out a way to replace Rocket Sanders, right? You're not going to lose all of your running production because of what you have in Lenore Sellers and his legs. But you think about how much production that Rocket Sanders had, not only running the football, but also out of the backfield, the amount of touchdowns he was able to put up. That is a lot of production and a lot of valuable production you're going to have to replace. I don't know if you're going to see a running back by committee because we really haven't seen that at South Carolina over the last few seasons, I feel like. I mean, they've had multiple guys back there, but whether it's due to injury or just what they want to make sure they are doing and the emphasis and focus on who they're putting in the backfield, it usually has been one guy, at least one main guy. And that's a little bit different with Rocket Sanders because he was a guy that got stronger as the game went on. I don't know if Justice Haynes is that. I mean, you're talking about a guy that all world coming out of high school never really felt like he got the opportunity to be that at Alabama. I mean, his freshman year, he came in the Rose Bowl, had several really good explosive runs early in the second half, and fans were wondering where was that all season, and they just went away from it. But this season, you're talking about a kid that averaged less than 8 carries per game. He's never had more than 13 carries in a game in his career. That's a guy that needs to go into this type of system, and if he's going to flourish, especially in his draft year, this is a perfect fit for him. Go to a place that's going to give you 17, 18, sometimes 23, 25 carries a game and feed you out of the backfield. That's perfect. I mean, that is a perfect fit for a kid like this. And you just have to think that, there's no part of me that feels like Justice Haynes is a bust. The idea that he is going to go to Ole Miss, I think On3 currently has him projected as, or like crystal ball to Ole Miss. Since that's happened, because it was several days ago, Ole Miss has already got a commit from a running back at I think it was Lacey, Kewan Lacey from Mizzou, and they're still the overwhelming favorite to land a kid out of Louisiana Monroe, who's like a somewhat local product. That doesn't mean they're going to not go after a guy like Justice Haynes, especially with how talented he is. But personally, I think this is a South Carolina-Michigan race. Like I don't think Ohio State is going to be focused on getting involved because they're in the playoff for one. I don't know if that's a guy that's going to fit their type of system, especially with what they have at receiver. And then on top of that, the thing with Ole Miss, they are spending a ton of money in the portal once again. I don't know how much more money they're going to have for a guy like this. The NIL valuation for Haynes is around $397,000, I believe. That's not a crazy amount of money, but you're hearing rumors that Ole Miss is trying to throw $1 million at a guy like Jalen Mbakwe from Alabama. You know what they spent last year in the portal from guys like Walter Nolan. They've already gone out and got the kid from Nebraska who's the number one edge rusher in the portal. They're still trying to get Dane Key from Kentucky. There's a lot of guys they are still trying to land. Singleton, the kid from Georgia Tech, that's a guy that they're going to be willing to spend a lot of money on because they need receivers. I think if South Carolina wants to go get Justice Haynes, they can go get Justice Haynes. Now, the valuation that he had versus what Rocket had going into last season is about double. Like around $400,000, I think Rocket was right around $230,000. But you should have a little bit deeper pockets going into this offseason with a little bit more to spend if you're going portal hunting. My 2 cents, I think that's a guy that would flourish in the system. And again, you look at the guys, even if they don't go after him, you look at the guys that Beamer has sought out in the portal so far in his staff, they really haven't missed. So if they don't land Haynes, or if they kind of back off, or you see him go somewhere else where they pay way more, don't lose a second sleep over it. All right, up next, we're going to talk very briefly about the Clemson game tonight, a couple more portal updates, and then we will get to the Kyle Kennard interview. Before we do, I want to tell you about our good friends, not a FanDuel this time, but our good friends at the college football playoffs. Listen, it is a very, very exciting time of year. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever. It's going to be bringing you all the hard-hitting action you know and love from postseason football. And on top of that, it is going to be on one of our favorite channels and streaming services, TNT, with round-the-clock sports coverage of the college football playoffs beginning on December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading to the first matchup, which is SMU at Penn State at noon. Then watch Texas beat the brakes off Clemson at 4 p.m. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. All right, that's all for the first part of the show. We will be right back. Locked on Gamecocks continues next. All right, so before we get into the interview, just want to dive into something real quick. And again, we've talked a lot about the portal. The portal's open for another 3 weeks. It has been an insane amount of like the numbers and sheer numbers of people entering the portal, the amount of money being thrown around this year. It's higher than ever. Now, part of that is for, the reasons because you're going into a year next year, and whether it's a calendar year or the fiscal year, however you want to look at it, where you're going to have revenue sharing for the first time, which is great for a lot of schools. So you don't have to have only deep pockets with your NIL to make a splash at all. But that being said, now you're seeing people with a budget they thought was going to have to last them a lot longer, and they can just go ham now. I don't know what that really does to impact South Carolina. The thing that I've been most impressed with South Carolina is making sure they are able to keep guys here and not entering the portal. So far, you've had 13 guys into the portal. That may sound like a lot. It's not. It's in the bottom half of the SEC. And you got to keep in mind, too, 3 of the teams in that bottom half are also playing for the college football playoff. So they already are just going to have, less numbers just because of that situation that they're currently in. Losing 13 guys, again, there isn't anyone that's a massive, massive loss per se. You bring in 2 so far. You still have the spring window as well. But as of today, you look at the portal window, as a whole, you have over 2,000 kids that have entered their name in the portal within the first week. To put that in perspective, last year total you had 2,600. You've had 2,000 in the first week. I think you had over 1,600 on the first day. 31% of those players that are entering the portal are doing it for the 3rd or 4th time and doing it without a degree yet, which is shocking. Once they enter the portal, only 2.2% ever take their name out. It's a very, very small amount. But overall, the numbers continue to be staggering and shocking. And like, I think the portal is good for football overall. But having 2,000 kids in the portal when there aren't really 2,000 spots available is a problem. And it is a free-for-all. It might be the last time you see something of this nature in the free-for-all that you're going to see right now because of everything I just told you with the spending and the rev share for next year. That being said, I love what Carolina is committed to doing, which is making sure they have deals in place to keep guys home with Garnet Trust and everything else like in-house. I feel like that's just as important as making sure you were going out and getting new faces. Build the team within, reward the guys that have already, shed blood, sweat, and tears for you in the, on the practice field, on the playing field, the weight room, all the guys that have already put in the work here, wearing that logo and that helmet and that jersey. Yeah, it's great to reward them first. I love that. You still have money to spend. I don't know what needs they are going to go after yet. It feels like they might try to go after one receiver. The kid from Wake Forest, Horatio something. Not a home run threat by any means. I think around like 11.8 yards per catch. Now, one interesting thing is you have a potential guy that they are going after that is a familiar name. And let me make sure I have this correctly because you guys know how bad I am at pronouncing names. Omega Blake, kid that transferred out last year, former 3-star. He's now a 4-star in the portal from Charlotte, led them in receptions, receiving yards. I think he had around 900 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns. Maybe it was like 700. 9 touchdowns, big play threat. That's a guy they might take a look at. The linebacker position needs to be a massive focus and a massive focal point. The kid from West Virginia would be a great add. There's a few from around the league from the SEC that are also still in the portal and others that are rumored to jump in as soon as the bowl games end because you still have a little bit of lapse after the bowl games end. The kid from Grambling, that is priority number 1, in my opinion. But again, you look at the track record that Beamer's had. I'm just going over some of the names. Debo Williams, 2-star. Obviously, that worked out well. Juice Wells, 4-star that did well for you. And then, massive regression when he left. Rattler, obviously, a 4-star out of the portal who was huge for South Carolina. Became their first drafted quarterback in over 30 years. Mario Anderson, 3-star from Newberry, ends up being your leading rusher. Trey Knox didn't have a, that crazy of a year in terms of production or filling up the stat sheet, but very productive from the tight end position. Ended up being, I think, second in receptions and receiving yards in the season he was here. What I'm saying is there's a ton of examples of guys who, whether it's from a team like Arkansas with Knox, team like Oklahoma with Rattler, Stogner who came from Oklahoma. You got a couple other guys like from schools like that. Like they hit just as much, if not more, when they go find kids from D2, from Group of 5. Like almost every single one of your receivers that started last year was from a G5 school that you got from the portal. So tons of faith in Beamer and what they're doing. Do not be worried if they only have 2 players so far in the portal at all. real quick, basketball game tonight against Clemson. Carolina's a 1.5 point underdog. It's at Colonial Life. It's at, I think, like 7 p.m., I believe. Obviously a big game. It's a rivalry game. Lost to them last year at Clemson by 5. The 1.5 point spread, not surprising. Clemson's ranked like 19th in the country in net. The net rankings, they're top 25 in AP. They haven't done that well on the road. They just haven't. They have one win on a neutral site against Penn State, but they also have a loss. I think it's by like 15 points on the road as well. There are other losses at home, but it's to Memphis, who's good. Here's one player, a breakout player for just tonight. And y'all are going to hate it because it's putting way too much faith in a transfer kid. But Nick Pringle, he has struggled early so far and trying to find his way and fitting into the defensive scheme and not being so overly aggressive at trying to be a rim protector on the defensive side. Not a great offensive player, just not. Like he has to be pretty close range, like point blank range, for him to be effective and efficient scoring. But last year against Clemson, and this is what the staff has continued to say when asked about it. His best games, his best plays has seemingly always come against better competition. Like when the lights are brightest, that's usually when he's at his best. And again, not a huge offensive threat consistently. But last year, the Elite Eight against Clemson, 16 points, 11 rebounds, 8 of 13 from the line. Obviously, you have the kid Shefflin from Clemson who's been really, really good this year. It can beat you in a number of ways. Third in the country in rebounding right now with 12 per game. I think that you have to figure out a way to slow that kid down. But with Pringle and Colin, man, I feel like – because I think Colin's ranked like 20th in the country in rebounds per game with 9.6. Pringle needs to have a game like he did last year against Clemson. But you're a 1.5 point underdog at home. I mean, give me Carolina. So that is all for the organic new stuff for this episode. Before we go, like I said, we have an exclusive interview with Kyle Kennard from last week on the interview and an award circuit from our good buddy Chris Gordy. Before we get to that, I want to tell you one more time about our friends at FanDuel, as well as our friends at PrizePicks. But first, FanDuel, listen, finish the season out strong in the NFL with America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. That's right, FanDuel.com. You've heard me say it 1,000 times. But if you have not signed up, all you have to do is sign up, place a $5 bet. And if you win that $5 bet, you will get $150 in free bonus bets. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. All right. Also, want to give a shout out to our friends at PrizePicks. You guys have obviously been familiar with PrizePicks. We have talked about them before. Fantastic app to help you win money. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you have to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your initial bet and the cash you put in. Run your game all season long with PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. So if you want to go jump on PrizePicks tonight, maybe place a bet on the over-under for rebounds or points for anybody in the basketball game. Pringle, like I just told you, had a fantastic game last year against Clemson. Or if you want to hold off until the bowl games that start today and the college football playoff, as we mentioned earlier, that goes on 1 game Friday, 3 games Saturday, make sure you are doing it with PrizePicks. It is the #1 daily fantasy sports app.
Pleasure to be coming to you from the Lombardi Award here in Houston. One of the guys who was a finalist tonight for the award is the guy who's been racking up all the awards this week. He is defensive end Kyle Kennard from South Carolina. Welcome in, man.
What's going on?
How about, as we discussed, it's just been officially announced, SEC Defensive Player of the Year. How about that?
It's nothing short of a blessing, man.
What's this all been like, this whirlwind year, playing at Georgia Tech, coming into the SEC, playing at South Carolina, having an immediate impact, and having the season you guys had? What's this all been like for you?
It's just been a good testimony to what the work I put in throughout the offseason, and then the training that I did, and then the type of offseason that I had, definitely, for sure. And then also, wait, what was the last part of the question?
Yeah, just this whole season. I mean, it's had to be just your head spinning in a new place and having immediate success,
definitely.
Right?
Yeah, so definitely most games I ever won in the season. So I'm glad to come somewhere where I win. It worked out for both. It worked out good for both sides of the party. Me coming in and then helping them, and then they helped me get to where I wanted to be today. And then it just was nothing short of a blessing for sure.
Take me through that decision, because you could have gone anywhere last year. You know, when you're making the decision, what sold you on South Carolina that said this is where I got to be?
I tell everyone that the people in the building sold me. But they came to visit me, the whole defensive staff in my living room. They had a plan, like a real plan for me. They laid out everything where they saw me in their program and their defensive scheme. I'm not saying the other coaches didn't do that, but I feel like they were realer about it. And then also just when I got there, the people in the building, I mean, everyone was genuine. Everyone had your best interest in heart. So that's something I really resonated with.
And then you have the freak freshman come in and Dylan Stewart playing on the other side. I mean, you guys for a while, just an absolute wrecking crew this year. What was that like? I mean, it's almost one of those things you enjoy in your teammates' success. If you're not getting a sack, he's getting a sack. You're celebrating for him, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. That guy's a freak, man. He's so young, and he has all of the intangibles that you have to train for. It's like, I just told someone else, it's like God just dropped it in his genetic makeup, and he just has the tools. And he's only a freshman, and like with him getting better each and every year, no doubt in my mind he'd be a lottery pick in the draft when it's time for him to come out. Did
you have a sack goal in your mind when you came in this year, or it was just make the most of the opportunity?
Definitely, it was to make the most of the opportunity kind of thing. But me and my trainer, we definitely had a double-digit sack goal in mind. I had that in the back of my head for sure.
11.5. I mean, to lead the SEC, and now we're starting to see it. You first team All SEC. That's an incredible accomplishment in its own. Winner of the Bronco Nagurski Trophy the other night. AP SEC Defensive Player of the Year named today. I mean, and now Lombardi Award finalist. I mean, this is just, it's got to be a testament to, man, all the hard work paying off. And it's nice to get the pat on the back sometimes, right?
No, definitely. Man, sometimes as an athlete, you try to shy away from it because you don't want to let it and affect your head negatively.
Yeah.
So, like, let your head get too big or whatnot. But, I mean, sometimes it's always good to take a step back sometimes and just be proud of yourself and what you did and how far you came along.
Because everything's always team. This is one where, no, it's actually individual. You're getting honored as the job you did.
Which is a great testament to my team. Once again, like, so that's the beauty of football. I mean, like, even the individual stuff is like, you look back on the sack, it's like I couldn't have never done that without the team. But you know what I'm saying? But it is beautiful to get individual recognition. I can't even lie and be naive and say it isn't.
Right. And Monster John is 6 sacks last year, Georgia Tech 11.5 this year at South Carolina. You born and raised in the Atlanta area, right? Sandy Spring?
I was born in Flint, Michigan.
Okay, but you grew up.
I moved from Flint, Michigan when I was 9, and then I did my growing up in Savannah-ish and Atlanta-ish.
Okay. Yep. And I've heard the high school football in Atlanta is pretty strong. What was that like?
I mean, I played when I was in high school, it was 5A, so 2 regions below 7A where all the grades you hear come from. But, I mean, it was pretty good football. I mean, good football was everywhere in the state of Georgia, so it was a blessing. And it was advantageous playing that in high school and coming to college with it.
Did you imagine when you're playing in high school that this is a few years later, this is where you would be?
I mean, I shot for the stars and everything I did, but, I mean, I did not know this was the star I was shooting for. Exactly.
Right. You know? Looking back on this season, I mean, what an incredible season you guys had, and Coach Beamer and the whole staff did an incredible job. But is there a favorite moment looking back, or a favorite game that you look back at and go, that it's going to stick with me for the rest of my life?
Yeah, I hate to say this in the state of Texas, but the Texas A&M game was a pretty good game for me. I mean, it was a pretty fun game. I mean, to just be that type of atmosphere, we're in all black, it's a night game, and it's their top 10 team tied up at halftime. I mean, you know, both teams are getting juiced up at halftime, and then first to come out and pitch a second half shutout, and our offense scored 24. I mean, sheesh.
Yeah, and I think the timing of that, they had just come off the second half rally against LSU, and Marcel's the quarterback now, and they're feeling pretty good. And you mentioned, I mean, it's a close game at half, but that second half, it was like a snowball rolling down a mountain that just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, night games at home in Columbia it can get rocking in that place.
It was crazy.
What are you going to miss most about? I mean, you're here a year, but I'm sure you developed some great bonds and relationships and all that. And the fans have you became a fan favorite very quickly. What are you going to miss most about your time?
That's what I was going to say, but probably most importantly, I'm going to miss the relationships that I made here in the building. I mean, there in South Carolina, and people I met. I mean, I made some lifelong relationships and friends. So that's what I'm going to miss most importantly. And I'm going to definitely the fans and the way that they interacted and supported throughout the season.
Did you find a favorite restaurant in Columbia?
I kind of fell in love with Old Chicago.
Okay.
So shout out to Old Chicago.
What's the go-to order there?
I get a bacon burger, barbecue bacon burger, and fries, strawberry lemonade.
Pretty legit barbecue sauce?
Good.
Okay. So some people are weird with their barbecue. Some people like dry, some people like wet. Or where do you fall?
What is dry barbecue sauce?
Like like the barbecue with no sauce.
Oh, okay.
That means you did the seasoning, right?
In between.
Yeah, because you got to have some kind of sauce.
Yeah, for sure.
It's got to be on there. Do you have a favorite food item you go for?
Probably chicken.
Okay.
Something like that. Any type of chicken.
Any. Yeah. I'm sure you, and when you got to keep your body in shape, right? You got to watch a little bit what you eat.
Definitely. So, luckily, chicken is a good protein for us. So.
Yeah. What's you guys finished the season strong? That win at Clemson was really nice. I guess a little bit disappointing that you don't make the playoff, but obviously I think Coach Beamer said it the other day. I mean, Citrus Bowl's first pick, and they picked you guys. Kind of sends a message like we were the next best team.
Right.
What's that like to kind of get ready for a game like this? Or for the team to get ready for a game like this that. You'll be leaving, but they can build a lot of momentum going into next season with Lenoris at quarterback.
I mean, it's a great game to be in. Obviously, shout out to the Citrus Bowl for even thinking about us. And like you said, it's the number one bowl outside of the playoff bowls. And then for them to even be thinking about us for that game was just a blessing in itself. And then I feel like we're going to see something we never saw from South Carolina in the bowl game. Like it's going to be a huge stepping stone. I mean, I feel like the bowl season is a way to build off of 2024 and then lead into 2025, and we're going to see some electric.
We saw a little bit of Lenoris last year, but I think there were a lot of question marks coming into the season. Like, well, if it could all come together, he could be really good. But like that dude, by the end of the year, I don't know if there's a quarterback playing better than him. What did you see from Lenoris as the year went along? It looked like confidence in himself, right?
His confidence blew up. I mean, we never left his side. I mean, whenever he felt like he was going through struggles, or whenever the people felt like he was going through struggles, we always told him like, no, you're still that guy. I mean, you're still the reason we score. I mean, if they don't score, they don't win. So for you to put up points for us to win games, I mean, you're that guy, brother. I mean, so we just stayed in his ear about how good he was, and towards the last 6 games, he just shifted the momentum and just turned electric.
Yeah.
Turned electric.
We got a couple of fellow SEC linemen here today, finalists for the Lombardi Award. You guys didn't play Texas, but you did play LSU. Did you go against Will one-on-one that game?
I did go against Will, man. I did go against Will.
How tough was that?
He's a good player. He's nimble with his footwork. He's good at pass hitting. He's not getting off his spot. I just told someone else he's not good at getting off his spot. He's a good player.
Who was there a big difference going from Georgia Tech to ACC to South Carolina? SEC? I mean, some of these old linemen in the SEC, I mean, they're big boys.
Yeah. I mean, there was not really, but I mean,
good football players are good football players.
There's not really a huge. I'll say the difference is like the more so like the atmosphere, the fans, and the how serious football is in the SEC. Like when they say it just means more, it really just means more.
Yeah.
But as far as the playing, I mean, it's more running. There's more than the ball there, but not even still like it's 2024. The SEC is throwing the ball too. I mean, Ole Miss. Look at Ole Miss. I mean. Yeah. It's not that big of a difference. I can't lie.
Yeah, but you bring up a great point. I mean, that's what everybody says, and that's where I think like the night games make a difference in this conference. Yeah. I mean, the home field can get so vibing and rocking, and I think that really came into play to help you guys a lot this year.
Definitely, a lot of times.
What was the toughest road environment y'all went to this year that you remember?
What was our record on the road?
Yeah. Y'all do well on the road. So you're not giving any roses. No roses to any of them. Okay.
Alabama. I give it to Alabama since we lost to them, and obviously they hold 100K, right? Like, so I give it to Alabama. But any other stadium we went to, I don't think we didn't experience nothing like William Bryce at another stadium.
Yeah.
I think like. Trying to think.
Nobody else playing Sandstorm.
And we beat everyone else, so it wouldn't get that loud. So yeah.
I love it, Kyle. What's the next step here as the season has kind of wraps up and all this? What's next for you?
I plan to pursue my freshman opportunities after football. I mean, after college.
Okay, and start getting into the whole grind of everything that takes post football. Well, congrats on a great, not just a great career, but a great season, man, individually. I mean, you deserve all these accolades, and I know your phone's blowing up with all the big announcements and everything. Really appreciate you taking some time, man, and best of luck to the next level, all right? All right. He is Kyle Kennard, SEC Defensive Player of the Year. We got more show coming up right after this.